of Americans now support legalizing marijuana. The number's never been this high. Why is that? Because people are talking about it. The more people talk about it, the better it is. I think it really has the opportunity to be that it's on the ballot in Colorado in November to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Why not?
How do you feel? It's a drug war or total failure?
Total failure. Drug war is a total failure. 70 years. We now have 20 million Americans who are convicted felons that, but for our drug laws, would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. Let's stop the war on ourselves. Yeah, thank you for your activism. Thank you. It was great meeting you. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson,
great. How about you?
Marshall,
Marshall, great to meet you.
One question.
Yes.
I was reading up on some of your points last night, and I'm with you on the majority of the board, but we can all disagree on some things. But one thing that you spoke of was getting rid of the corporate income tax.
Yes.
And marginalizing or minimalizing the personal income tax.
Yes.
But should it not be the other way around? Should it not be that you get rid of the corporate income tax and get rid of the personal income tax and minimize the corporate income tax, because corporations are chartered by the state and are given status by the state and the county level, whereas we the people, we are the sovereigns of the state, should not be them getting taxed and us giving a consumption tax. That way we can step away and not pay for something if we can't afford it.
Okay, so I think you're way in the weeds on this, just way in the weeds. Let's just simplify it a whole bunch. And that would be, we're going to do away with the IRS. No more IRS.
That was one thing I noticed you spoke of. I completely agree with it.
So if you take a can of Coke as an example, a can of Coke costs $1. In that can of Coke is 23% embedded tax. That's all the tax that Coke has to pay. And now they're passing. That's all the corporate tax, corporate income tax that Coke pays. They're passing it on to you.
Right.
And
just
you're
like
paying.
sales tax.
Exactly.
We're not selling anything, we're buying, but yet we still pay a sales tax.
Yes. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that maybe okay. So the can of Coke, if you do away with corporate tax and income tax, do away with all federal tax and replace it with one federal consumption tax, that can of Coke will sell for 80 cents instead of $1. You'll apply the 23% consumption tax to it, and it'll end up still costing $1. Right. So here it is, you don't have to pay any more income tax. Corporations don't pay, because if corporations pay tax, you're going to pay for the corporate tax. So that's, does that?
It does, but it's one of those libertarian arguments that would be like, well, if it's a fictional body here, shouldn't they be taxed and not us, the people who actually produce for the corporations?
But the reality is that taxing them taxes us.
Do you have an opinion on the constitutionality of income tax and the argument?
It's constitutional because of the 16th Amendment. The fair tax as a package dictates that the 16th Amendment be repealed 6 years after the passage of the fair tax, and that if it's not repealed, then the whole bill reverts.
But isn't anything, I can't remember if it's Mayberry versus Madison, but any law that's repugnant to the Constitution is thus null and void on its face?
Well, now you're back though to the 16th Amendment, which allowed for income tax. I mean, that's what the 16th Amendment was all about.
In 2001, you had supported NAFTA.
Yes. Yes.
You still stand by that?
It's to this day. Now, by the way, I didn't have to sign NAFTA. Okay? This is not anything I put my signature on. So I'm looking at this from afar. And if you take the Cato Institute, for example, Cato Institute was saying this promotes free market, that it's not perfect, but that it's better than what we have. So from a distance, again, I don't have to put my signature on it, and maybe if I had to put my signature on it, I would have looked at it. And what I have understood about about NAFTA is that it's very corporatist. I mean, this is after the fact. Is it an improvement? I really can't say. But that was the notion behind supporting NAFTA, that it was an improvement over what we've had.
Right, but in all reality, it just made it easier for corporations to cut their losses, cut their employees, and move their businesses overseas, and also cut people's pensions, like Circuit City, and all those closures that went out of business, Delta and United Airlines.
So now I'm a free market guy, totally free market guy. So back to what I'm proposing right now, if you do away with corporate tax and income tax and the IRS, don't all those jobs come back?
As long as we don't incentivize and pay them to move overseas, just like we did with GM.
Sure.
Because taxpayer dollars went to go actually help them move overseas. It's just a big problem. Thoreau warned us about NAFTA, the free trade. They told him he was crazy. He said, what did he say? The siphon. What you'll hear is the siphoning sound of the U.S. economy going overseas. I think we've experienced it. Another thing, I'm pretty sure the media is probably going to try and get you on this one. I'm not saying they're just going to try and take your quotes out of context, but you quoted that you were against student loans to the federal government. They didn't quote you saying federal government. That's what you meant on that. And later on you said that for New Mexico that you supported in New Mexico that for getting vouchers for $30, which we preface it because what they did was they took it out of context because the original statement was at the federal level, federal government has no business in that matter. If the state wants to do it, that's a state's prerogative. So I'm just bringing that up because that's probably something they're going to try and claim a flip-flop on, but it's not.
Well, and actually, when I proposed a $3,500 voucher, the unit cost for anyone in public education was at that time about $5,500. So you could take your $3,500 and apply it to public school, and $3,500 happened to be the average cost to get into a private school.
Yeah, but that doesn't even really matter because it comes down to the state prerogative. New Mexico wanted to do it, or people like you to do it. Yeah, that's their prerogative. People don't like it, they can move.
I'm impressed by your research.
Late night work. Also, I just saw that as one thing that they were probably going to try and twist because that's the way it looked when I read it. But I read it and I'm looking at it like, okay, well that's a federal issue and that's a state issue. Completely separate.
On John Stossel, I'm going to paraphrase you, but you had said that you felt you were the man, God, things don't work out for Ron Paul in Tampa, that you'd be the man to carry on the ideas of liberty.
Right.
That was pretty awesome. You feel that way? And what would you say, is there anything that sets you apart from Ron Paul? What would be your biggest difference? Is there any?
No. He is a social conservative. I'm not, but he's not going to. He does not espouse that social policy being law.
Yeah.
And so really, I don't.
Obviously, a lot of similarities. That's why I'm just curious if there's anything that you just like. Nah, I'm opposed to Ron Paul. And on that note, would you consider him as a pick for VP?
Or Fed chair.
Well, I do have a VP right now.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Jim Gray. So we're in this. And
his point was a Fed chair, and also keep in mind Judge Andrew Napolitano for a Supreme Court seat if one comes up.
Well, and absolutely, and I think Judge Napolitano for a very short amount of time considered being.
He'd be a good one.
Was your VP? Yeah.
He was, he's been very helpful. He has been very helpful.
He's a good voice.
I think he gave a real terrific endorsement of me at Freedom Fest, and by that endorsement, he was asked, "Would you run for president of the United States?" And
you've had a lot of great endorsements. Adam Kokesh, even Alex Jones. I mean, you've had
terrific. Jesse Ventura. Came completely unexpected.
Because you're kind of in a position to, if things, like I said, don't go well for Ron Paul in Tampa, then you're kind of I hate to say it, but yeah, there's a lot of voters that are going to be looking, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's like, your gut instinct as a Paul supporter is you want to write in his name, but it's just kind of self-gratifying because if he's not on the ballot, it's not going to get counted.
Right.
we know we don't want Obama or Romney, and we know you have a lot of great ideas. So it's just something that maybe
those great ideas, I think, without exception, would be the same as Ron Paul.
Exactly. That's why I was trying to say, like, is there anything, because I'm not aware of it, like where you just are opposed to any ideas that because we know what he's about. We're having to do a little catch up on, you know.
And I always hate trying to draw the very specific distinctions because it kind of draws away.
Would it not be better to step back and say, you know what, the government has no business in marriage at all? So let me finish though. It would be better off to allow personal unions to take place under contract. Personal contract, we go for another and say we're going to do it, and go file it with the county or state record instead of having the state being this being a political issue. It's a tar baby. You know, some people agree with it, some people don't. But you know what? Just step back and let a personal union take place, just for on a contract basis.
Okay, so I started out with those words. Come to find out, there are thousands of lines of federal law where the word marriage is there. By the way, implementing the fair tax, doing away with the income tax, eliminates about half or more of the issues surrounding marriage equality, because marriage equality has to do with equal treatment under the law with regard to taxes and being able to pass on your estate. These are the issues. So come to find out, if you say that government should get out of the marriage business and let's say just be involved in civil unions, you would actually have to have a piece of legislation for every one of those lines of federal legislation to change them into civil union, effectively saying, look, I'm not going to change it. But by saying get government out of the marriage business is effectively saying we're not going to deal with it. These great words for not dealing with it.
It's not necessarily not dealing with it. It's just going about it in different ways where a candidate doesn't have to endorse a certain stance on it. You can say, you know, the state's prerogative, file it from the county.
But if it's so I maintain that it is a constitutionally guaranteed right on par with civil rights of the 60s.
Marriage licensing only came about after the Civil War.
Right.
We got that license.
And that had to do with races. Right. That had to do with races.
People don't know about that. Right. This term called miscegenation. I'm pronouncing it right. The term you had to have a license to read the race. Would you believe the last grade I passed from 8th grade?
I would find that hard to believe. Yeah. You belong where I belong, where I'm at, but if given the opportunity, but I've been given the opportunity. So you're stuck with me. So just help me out.
Well, hey man, look us up. We are Change San Antonio.
We don't have to agree, but we come together civilly and discuss ideas. That's where these ideas branch out and become a great country.
And that's the beautiful part about Libertarian is we can have these discussions and we'll cuss and discuss and we'll both be better for it.
I appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciate yours.
Thank you. I'll be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for your activism.